What's up, football fans? It's time for Wild Card Weekend for the NFL picks and predictions. Of course, before we get underway with apparently now dubbed Super Wild Card Weekend. I don't know why the media is doing that. I didn't realize it was doing that until I listened to Bill Burr's podcast on their picks and stuff at the end of his podcast this week. And they kept saying that all the media outlets, and then I looked it up and it's like, yeah, they keep calling this Super Wild Card Week. It's like, okay, okay. What makes this wildcard weekend more super than the next? I have no idea. But either way, that being said, as you know, we will jump into what our Week 18 picks are and how we did at the end of the season here, and then we'll jump into the wildcard one. So, without further ado, Week 18, we decided to go with Baltimore. Once again, at this point, and the last couple of points, we were not trying for a better win percentage. We were trying to win the weeks. We were trying to win our money back each week. Unfortunately, it never ended up happening. And like I already said, week 1 and week used to be 17, now week 18 are the hardest ones to pick because people are resting their star players. Some people don't. Some people don't need to try. Some people are trying to clinch a playoff spot. So it's all over the map, right? And to start us off with that, I said even though Baltimore, of course, being the best team currently, I believe, in the league, I thought that they still, even with their secondaries and stuff, were still going to give Pittsburgh a hard time. And the fact that Pittsburgh only won a one-possession game just proves that Pittsburgh, they're in, but wow, okay. And Baltimore did lose that game, though I did go with Baltimore, still thinking that they were going to be able to beat up on a very weak Steelers team. But they lost. So that's my first loss there. Then we did pick Houston correctly to defeat Indianapolis, and Houston, of course, is in the playoffs. Same with Cincinnati, ended up destroying the Cleveland Browns, but unfortunately for Cincinnati, it didn't matter. Cleveland is the one that makes it in the playoffs, and Cincinnati does not. And once again, I'm not saying that they weren't already clinched or, got a spot and all that stuff. I'm just saying what ended up basically happening as a result overall at the end of the season here. Same with Detroit. Detroit beat up on Minnesota. I don't think very many people picked against Detroit in that regard. Minnesota's sort of, you know what I mean? They've always been like that, like ever since they lost their quarterback and such. But it is what it is there. Jacksonville lost to Tennessee quite handily. And that actually, I believe this game did matter, if I remember correctly. And Jacksonville, as a result of this, Jacksonville had a potential to grab a playoff spot, and this is part of the reason that they didn't get in. They couldn't win over Tennessee. Quite shocking for a lot of people, actually. I think a lot of people picked Jacksonville for this. The Jets did beat up on New England, pretty substantially. New England only scored 3 points, so we got that one correct. New Orleans beat Atlanta, and by a shit ton, 48-17. Holy crap. I thought Atlanta would at least give New Orleans a run, but I guess not. Tampa Bay beats Carolina. I don't think many people picked Carolina. They scored 0 points, though Tampa Bay only scoring 9 against Carolina, so they weren't looking so hot either. But once again, who was being rested and stuff, I mean, it was all over the map this week. And so Green Bay manages to beat Chicago. Once again, this is one of my upsets along with Atlanta and such. And unfortunately, it didn't pan out for me either with this one because Green Bay did beat up on Chicago. Not by too many points, 17-9, but they did win at home field advantage. Vegas defeated Denver. Honestly, that was a coin flip one, as I already said, but I did think that Denver would do a better showing against the Raiders. But the Raiders are so inconsistent, you just never know. The Giants, and I did pick them. This is at least one upset that actually worked for me, though it didn't end up winning me anything. The Giants beat Philadelphia. This just automatically secured us with a definite that the Cowboys won the whole division. So that was fantastic. I think if it still came down to points, had the Eagles won, I think we still won in point differential, how those tiebreakers work. There's a lot of factors when it comes to tiebreakers. They look at different things in different orders. But overall, I still think we would have won it, but this cinched it. This was no debate whatsoever. And the Giants actually beat up on Philly pretty handily there. Seattle defeated Arizona, and it was a very close game, 21-20, but I did get Seattle right on that one. KC beat up on the Chargers, but only by 1 point. Like, jeez, what is up with... I know they were resting Mahomes and stuff like that, but still, like, I just don't know. Sometimes you look at these scores like, really? Really? The Rams lost to San Francisco, but only by a point. Now, granted, both teams are in the playoffs with San Francisco winning the NFC, and they have a bye this week, but still, you know, the Rams, the fact that they were able to push San Francisco, I mean, it looks pretty good on the Rams side, you know, right now. It really does, because it's going to be very difficult to, and if you're already in, you're not going to go out of your way to try and, you know, get your stars injured and stuff. You know, week 18, that's the problem too, is that just because a team isn't resting their starters and stuff, if they are already going to be in the playoffs, regardless of a win or not, they aren't going to exactly be trying 110%. So the problem with looking at any of these scores is that there are way too many factors involved, and a lot of these scores, a lot of these games didn't matter to either team. So there is that. And then Dallas absolutely destroying Washington. We all sort of knew that would happen, just because the only reason people thought that Washington was going to be able to do something against Dallas is because they've been beating up on the Eagles all damn year. They've been beating up on the Eagles and just barely losing out to them a couple of times. And everyone thinks that the Eagles are better than Dallas. Well, okay. Anyways, we beat up on them 38-10, and then Miami loses to Buffalo, yet both teams made it into the playoffs regardless. But Buffalo did actually beat Miami by a touchdown, and or at least by a touchdown score, and those are the results. That's only 8 wins, bringing our total up to 161 wins to 111 losses this season. Granted, I probably could have gotten up to about maybe as close as 168, 169, something like that, had I played more conservatively the last from week 15 on. But I was just trying to win a week. I wasn't going to be able to catch the leader, who ended up with, I believe, if I look at this, sorry about that, I couldn't find the page. But yeah, the leader ended up with a total of 188 wins to 84 losses. So even getting into the 170s, I was in no position to catch the leader, who actually won quite handily. Second place was the only one with over 180 wins with 181. After that, it goes into the mid 170s and such. But I wasn't going to be able to catch anything like that. And even if I had played conservatively, as I said, if I had about, let's highball it and said I would have gotten 169, that's only 18th. Or 19th at best. So once again, there was no point in trying to play conservatively. Playing liberally where it was my best bet to try to win something. It didn't end up happening, but that's fine for this season. That being said, let's move on to the actual picks for Wild Card Weekend. Super Wild Card Weekend, apparently. Super Wild Card Weekend. All right, so first up we have the Houston Texans and the Cleveland Browns. Honestly, Cleveland has proven so much. I want to go with the Texans, and I think the favorite for the game, and I try to avoid that, reading that stuff before I make my own picks, but you hear stuff on the radio and when you listen to podcasts and stuff. And in all honesty, watching SportsCenter is probably not a good idea around this time of year, but I'm going to have to go with the Browns. All week I was saying, I'm going to go Texans. I'm going to go Texans. And then when you stopped and thought about it, and the fact that Cleveland, like the reason, Cincinnati's not in, or Minnesota didn't do so hot, and yada, 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 or the Jets, because no Aaron Rodgers, everyone's saying, they lost their quarterback, so they're obviously not going to make it. Now, some teams recover from this, or manage to squeak in and do fairly well, regardless, without their starting QB. Cleveland went through 4. Did I count that right? 4 different quarterbacks and still managed to make it to the playoffs? I'm just saying, that type of tenacity. And Joe Flacco, I liked him on the Ravens. He's got nothing to lose when he got that phone call saying, hey, do you want to come play for the Browns? We are literally out of quarterbacks at this point. We're running through them like hotcakes. So, boom, I just don't want to count out Joe Flacco and the Cleveland Browns because, once again, Flacco's in it just to see how far he can do. You know what I mean? Like he's already proven himself as a great quarterback already in his tenure, you know, on the Ravens and stuff. He's got nothing left to prove other than let's just see how far I can go. They got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So, and the fact that Houston came back late in the season, there's another good success story and stuff. So this is going to be, in my opinion, this is going to be the best game in the AFC. I think, for Wild Card Weekend, Houston and Cleveland. That's going to be a great game. That's going to be an awesome game, I hope. Then we have Kansas City Chiefs against the Miami Dolphins, and everyone thinks Patrick Mahomes, man. And they're not wrong. They're not wrong. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. But I'm going Miami. I am going Miami. I know that that's a lowball pick, though. I know that that is an underdog pick. I think the Houston Browns game is a 50-50, whoever you pick. The favorite's got to be the Chiefs. The favorite is, of course, going to be the Chiefs. But they've looked inconsistent. Even when Mahomes is on the field and stuff like that. I'm not talking just last week. I'm saying they've been playing pretty bad football overall in the later half of the season, if you just look at it as a unit. So, sort of the opposite of Houston, who couldn't get anything done in the first half of the season and then, started to pick up the pace. The opposite can be said for both Kansas City and Buffalo, which we'll talk about Buffalo here in a minute. But I've got Miami. I've got Miami as an underdog pick to win in Wild Card Weekend. Once again, playoffs, as all sports fans will tell you, football fans will tell you, playoffs are always a different animal. They're always a different beast. It's sort of like the 2-minute drive is a totally different drive. The last minute drives are always the 2-minute, rush down the fields are always different and stronger plays. And so many people will say, why didn't they start doing this 10 minutes ago when we had more time on the clock? It's like, because this is a very aggressive style. You don't do this all game because A, your guys run out of gas, and B, it's only meant as a last-ditch effort realistically. So, yeah, that's sort of what's going on here. In all honesty, it's a different animal. Playoffs are different, and I really do think we're going to see a couple of upsets this weekend. So, Miami Dolphins over KC. Then, Buffalo versus Pittsburgh. No, I'm not going to do it twice. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it twice. Go Buffalo. Go Buffalo. I got nothing really against Bills fans or Miami fans, though I do find Bills fans a little pretentious when they started doing well. I mean, every fans, team and fans and stuff like that, they all tend to act like that. Or you just run into that one guy who just, it's like, listen, I had nothing against, maybe someone meets me, hey, I had nothing really against or against the Cowboys, but listening to you go on about the Cowboys, fuck, now I just wanted to watch them lose because I hate you, So, I mean, I'm sure I do that to people because there's sports fans everywhere that do that. But outside, I have some good experience with some Bills fans, honestly. And yeah, same with Dolphin fans. They like Dolphin fans. They sit up there and they're still running on the high of the 70s Dolphins and stuff. But every franchise does that. 49ers fans for the, the 80s. Dallas fans for the 90s. Patriots fans are still going to be Pats fans, well into, the next decade. It happens. It always happens. So yeah, no, nothing against Bills fans there. And honestly, Pittsburgh has looked like shit all year. I'm sorry. Even when they've done successful stuff, at the end of the day, I got to go with the Bills. I don't think that's going to be much of a contest. I predict about a 2-possession win for the Bills at least. I'm not saying Pittsburgh won't score or anything like that. It's not going to be like a 33-0, but I don't see the Bills struggling very hard this weekend. Then we move on to the NFC. Really good football, though. Once again, Houston and Cleveland is going to be my favorite game for the AFC. Cowboys up against the Packers, and we have a bad luck in the playoffs. We always have, and especially against the Packers. Dez Bryant caught the ball. But other than that, in all honesty, looking at the numbers, looking at the stats, looking at everything, and assuming that we don't have any of that, what do they call it? Jinxes, not a jinx, but superstition, like, oh, he's always, he's bad in the playoffs, and stuff like that. As long as none of that shit is to come true and we actually play good football and stuff, there's no reason the Cowboys won't walk all over the Packers. And so once again, just like with the Bills, I predict at least a 2-possession win for how about them Cowboys? How about the Cowboys? So, yep. Going with the Cowboys with confidence this weekend. And then Detroit Lions versus the LA Rams. Ooh, baby. In all honesty, this to me is a coin flip of a game. It really is. Matt Stafford coming back to the Lions. You know, we've seen it happen before. We've seen it go in favor and against across the years of being football fans. But in all honesty, it's my other underdog pick. I'm going with the Rams. It's another underdog pick. I'm going with the Rams because I do still think that Detroit is favored to win this game. And the Rams have been a little... They had a bit of a good run there. I think it was like the early season. And then they started to sort of win, lose, and they're sort of playing pinball with the win-loss ratio. But I think the Rams are going to really give them a run for their money. This is not going to be an easy win by either team. It's a bit of an uphill battle for the Rams, but I do think that they have a shot at this. And plus, I'd like to see the Lions kicked out because they're a bunch of whiny babies. You know, ever since that Cowboys game, I had no problem with the Lions prior to that, but listening to them whine and moan on every social media platform for a week and a half, and it's just like... Listen, we have a reason to bitch too, but like after the week's over, we give up, we move on. You know, it's like, like I'm not gonna, sit here every week and tell you, oh, this got held up, that got held up, So Lions, stop talking about it. They're still tweeting about that, and it's like, you're in the playoffs. It's playoff time. Shut up about a game that didn't matter, But either way, so I'm going with them, and hopefully the Lions do get kicked out because their fan base is full of a bunch of entitled babies. And then finally, the final game, of course, do we go for the Eagles? Do we pick the Eagles? I mean, it's the obvious choice, so screw that. We're going with Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're going picking 3 home games, 3 away games. It just worked out that way, and technically speaking, I guess you could call it 3 underdog picks with Miami, Rams, and the Buccaneers. We're going with the Buccaneers as our 3rd underdog pick, even though they are at home. They are at home. So, and once again, I still think that's a very close game. I think the Eagles are going to turn it on, and they are likely probably to win it. But I think Buccaneers fans will be pleased. I think that Tampa Bay is going to surprise everyone. They're going to, once again, showcase that the Eagles are just not as good as their paper record showed in the first half of the season. I was saying it way back then on week 10 and stuff like this 9-1, 9-2 record, or whatever they had, 10-1 record. It wasn't as impressive on paper as it was on the field if you actually watch the games. If you watch the games and you see how they won, and the lucky bounces and the way the calls went and how calls were reversed, and even then, even if the game was well reffed and no lucky bounces, how close the score was to otherwise mediocre teams. Look no farther than their 2 matches against Washington. The Eagles didn't exactly stomp all over them like they should have for a team that's supposedly the best in the NFC for the first half of the season. So, yeah, definitely Eagles fans are going to be sitting, at the edge of their seat. They're not going to lay back. I don't think they're going to be laying back easily here in Wildcard Weekend. So, of course, the Ravens and the 49ers don't play, both getting byes, but good luck to both, of course, of those teams. I definitely think the Ravens are probably going to go all the way to the AFC title spot. Now, the NFC is a little more difficult to predict, but of course I'm rooting for my Cowboys, but we'll have to wait and see. So anyways, that's the Wildcard Weekend. Let's get through Wildcard Weekend first before we start making predictions well into the future. Anything can happen on any given Sunday, and in this case Saturday too, so as they say in the football world. So that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and go watch some football. Let's see what happens. Let me know what your guys' picks and predictions were down in the comment section down below. And we'll see you back here for next weekend when we get into the next round of the playoffs. Looking forward to it. Hope you guys are too. Sayonara.